we've done equations before, and again, if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about when I'm talking about equations with brackets, we're talking about solving equations with brackets. So we're trying to find the value of x normally. Of course, it doesn't have to be an x. I think we've covered that before. It could be any letter, but it tends to be x. So let's just dive straight in, to be honest. Right, so what we're looking to do is solve an equation with a bracket and effectively find what x is. Okay, so let's have a look. So you've got 3 bracket x plus 2 equals 18. All right, now suggestion at the top in here is that you expand the brackets first to rearrange. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Now, some people will argue that you don't need to do that necessarily, but in terms of obviously you having a technique to follow, to kind of stick to, then that's probably the good way to go, because when we expand the bracket, you're going to get it in a format that you're probably more familiar with than having it not in a bracket. Okay, so I will talk to you about the idea of saying not expanding the bracket and when you should and shouldn't do it, but I'll do that kind of at the end. All right, so for now we're going to expand the bracket. Okay, so looking at the 3x and plus 2, so this is the bit we're going to expand, so that would be 3x and expand it, and of course the 3 times the 2 is going to give me 6, so that's going to be 3x plus 6 is going to give me 18. All right, and at this point it's a rearranging idea, so you might want to look at other videos on rearranging, but essentially this plus 6 is going to come to the other side, so we're going to do the inverse of this, because you remember trying to isolate the x, so that's going to come to the other side and become a minus. All right, it's the inverse operation. All right, so that one there. So you might want to look at rearranging a formula or an equation if you're unsure why I've done that one, but I'm taking away 6 from this side, so I have to take away the 6 from this side, but obviously a quick way of looking at it is the plus 6 comes to the side and becomes a minus. It's the inverse operation, isn't it? All right, so let's just simplify this right hand side, I should say. That gives me 3x equals 12, because 18 take away 6 is 12. And then we need to divide by 3, all right, because this is 3 times x, so it's like 3 lots of something equals 12. So if I divide both sides by 3, then x equals 12 divided by 3, and then x is equal to 4. All right, now we can check that quite comfortably by just going straight by the top and just put it in here. Or it's 4 plus 2, 6, times it by the 3, that's going to give me 18. All right, so there you go. So expand the bracket, and then a little bit of rearranging, step by step by step, and x equals 4. This step-by-step idea, and so some people would argue they could probably see it in their head, is not particularly useful. They're not going to get any marks in the exam, and normally it's the process that they're after, and obviously the more complicated that process, the more complicated the question becomes, the more marks they're likely to give you in terms of seeing that process written down. All right, so it's a good habit to kind of show every single step as you kind of go through it. All right, so let's have another look at one more. And I just want to mention this bit here about expanding the bracket. Now, some people say I could divide both these two sides by 2. All right, because this is 2 times this lot. Okay, and I could do that if they did 2 times and divide this by 2, then the 2 would disappear, and that would become 35, and now we'd be left with 4x minus 5 equals 35. Now that works. All right, it does work. But if this was a 3, then it becomes very, very difficult, because I can't do 70 divided by 3. All right, if I go back to this one over here, I could have done the same thing. I could have divided this by 3, which would have divided that by 3, and it would have left me with x plus 2 equals 6, and therefore that would have made it a little bit easier. All right, but like I said, I think for the purpose of this video is we're going down the line of expanding the brackets. All right, so there are different ways, there are different things you can kind of learn as you progress, but what we're saying here is stay safe, expand the bracket, and then rearrange it. Okay, so when we expand the 2 times the 4x, it gives me 8x. When I times the 2 times the minus 5, it's going to give me minus 10 is equal to 70. Like we did before, the minus 10 is going to come to the other side and become a plus, like so. And then we're going to simplify the right-hand side, which is 8x equals 80. And then like before, because this is 8 times the x, I'm going to divide it. 80 divided by 8, and therefore x is going to be 10. And again, I can check that if we wish. So 4 times 10 is 40. Minus the 5 is 35. And so 35 times the 2, which is 70. Okay. All right, let's just look at another one, which is still equations with brackets, but of course, what we had before is you only had one bracket on one side. All right, you might have more than one bracket. All right, so this technique of expanding the bracket is why I'm suggesting it's probably a good idea, because when I look at something, when I've got something horrendous looking like that, then the idea of saying, well, let's divide it by 2 on the outside of the bracket or divide it by 3 on the outside of the bracket, it becomes a problem. It becomes a big, big problem, all right? So if we can just expand the brackets and then look to simplify it, then we're in a safe place in terms of what we do on a consistent basis. All right, so let's have a look what we've got. So we've got 2 bracket x plus 3 bracket x plus 5 equals 46. All right, so our first steps are expanding this bracket and this bracket. They are 2 separate single brackets. Okay, so I'm going to do one at a time. So let's start with this one. So we've got 2 times the x, which is 2x. You've got 2 times the 3, which is the 6. And then we've got, keep your eye on this, which is what it's mentioned here about be careful with minus signs, because that is a plus. So it's plus 3 times x, 3x, and plus 3 times plus 5, which is plus 15, equals 46. All right. We'll now look at this line here, where we're looking to simplify it. So let's bring our x's together. So 2x plus 3x, which gives us 5x. And then the 6 and the 15, both positives, gives us plus 21, equals 46. And now it's looking a little bit more familiar in terms of what we're used to seeing when solving an equation. So let's take away the 21 from this side. So 5x equals 46 minus 21. And therefore 5x equals 25. And like on the previous slide, we need to divide by this number because it's times, which is 25 divided by 5, which of course is 5. Now this is a bit more awkward in terms of checking it, but we can, if we wanted to do it. So if I do 5 plus 3 is 8, times by 2, that's 16, isn't it? And then 5 plus 5 is 10, times by 3 is 30, well 16 and 30 is 46. So we're okay, we're good. All right. Let's just look at one more, and I mentioned it about being careful with the signs here. Well, you do need to be careful with the sign here, because if you notice from here, I've got a minus on the outside, and that's going to make a big difference when I expand it. All right, so this is what you've got to be careful of. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of students tend to make mistakes. They tend to ignore it. All right, especially this one as well. All right, so we're going to walk through that one. So let's expand this bit first. So I've got 6x there, 6 times x, 6 times the plus 2, plus 12. And then here, okay, so let's be careful. I've got minus 4 times x, so minus 4x. And minus 4 times minus 1, and this is where a lot of people make the mistake. They ignore this minus, they see this minus, but it's a minus times a minus, which gives you plus 4. Now, if you've missed that bit, then of course the rest of your kind of working out down here is all going to be wrong because you've missed this bit. So be very, 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 very careful. I can't say it more than this, but the amount of times I've seen students make that mistake. Well, if I had £1 for every time I do it, I won't be doing these videos. Anyway, so let's kind of simplify this. So I've got 6x minus 4x are going to give me 2x. So they're the x's. I've got plus 12 plus 4, it's going to give me plus 16 equals 30. And again, this looks a little bit more comfortable in terms of what we need to do. So we're going to take away the 16 on the other side, 30 minus 16, and then simplify it. So 2x is equal to 14. So divided by 2, which is going to give me x is equal to 7. All right. And I might as well check it while I'm here. So 7 plus 2 is 9, times by 6, which is 54. So just remember that, 54. And I'm going to do 7 take away 1, which is 6, times by 4, which is 24. So 54 take away 24 is 30. So we're happy, we're good. All right. So be very, very careful when doing all this. All right. I mentioned there are different ways of approaching it, but expanding the bracket is the way to go. It's the safe way to go. And of course, when you're doing that kind of process, you've just got to be wary of any kind of negative sign. All right. Suggest if you need a bit more practice on that, please visit maths-school.co.uk, get onto the quizzes, do a bit of practice. The link is at the bottom, but I'll see you again really soon.